we will publish our Frag L4 after it's reviewed by the entire Warfighter Forum community, probably sometime this fall. Naturally, some of us are not digital natives within the Warfighter Forum, and many of our leadership, quite frankly, are not. And that's intuitive. We all know this. It's a cultural type activity. But we have to recognize that the Warfighter Forum and knowledge management have got to be able to move with the technology has got to move with the soldiers in BCT's functional, multifunctional brigades. So we're still looking for ways in that regard too. We want to continue. We've got to do a better job of integrating our lessons learned into schoolhouse POIs, and also as we go into supply-based operations to increase and provide more robust planning and procedures for home station training and CTC preparation for the AC as well as the RC. Next slide. This is like death by PowerPoint at this point with the concept and the mission. Simply because, I mean, what we say about Warfighter Forum is intuitive and clear as being the same type of process we're looking at for knowledge management in general. Warfighter Forum mission, though, is really geared towards knowledge management to the BCT level of DT. Next slide, please. This rather blown out atomic feature here illustrates what the community of purpose looks like currently within the Warfighter Forum. Forces Command has the 3 cores. Each one of those are manned entities. Each one of those produces newsletters, has web portals, and does analysis of umbrella week activities and lessons learned activities. To the right, we show TRADOC and all the COEs that are involved. Same thing. Each one of them have those type of conduits for information and knowledge for. AMC, they're building their program. Their headquarters at this point only. We discussed the entrees with that activity, perhaps down to the AFSB level of activity. Naturally, all of these will be looking into how the community of purpose looks at best practices for moving into a supply-based operation. AMED has been on board for a while and has made great strides, certainly in the area of technology and those conduits for their information flow. And IMCOM has just come on board, and we're really excited about that. As of the four-star executive council in April of 2010, IMCOM came on board as the 4th largest entity in regards to a Warfighter Forum. Next slide, please. Naturally, within Forces Command, we're interested in training as we fight. Some of the capabilities we've shown are a web-based approach in many regards, but as I said before, that is not our primary concern. Our primary is people, but the web-based approach has really pushed us forward. Best of breed across networks. One of the things that we found is that through best practice type of outlook on the websites that are out there, we can reduce redundancies by a collaborative effort to look at those best practices in each one of the COE and core conduits we're currently using. And that's an active process, and it's ongoing. I'll show you the governance and how often we meet to be able to actually collaborate on those activities. And again, no wiring diagrams. So again, we're facilitators, not directors. Next slide. This is the history of the Warfighter Forum. Started off essentially, as I stated before, Stryker University was something that the First Corps had initiated. Really did make it a university type of atmosphere, as the Stryker brigades now are 7, 6 active and 1 reserve, and they were able to put together a program and the initiatives to collaborate with those BTCs in a very efficient manner. General Campbell saw this, the headquarters FORSCOM commander liked it, got all of got the commanders from TRADOC and AMC on board. They liked it. A charter was drawn. We've got a charter. We have that gives all those organizations direct liaison authority to discuss and collaborate with each other at the action officer level. We have we've been able to get things generated from that top level, which we couldn't have possibly have done without them. The next step was in 2008, and the executive order for Warfighter Forums signed by General Campbell and sent out to the collaborators and sent to all the ACOMs that established some of the business rules and direction we all wanted to go with this program. At that time, General Campbell insisted that all three of the corps commanders came on board. Again, they were looking forward to this because they had become rather unencumbered and flattened out in it, and were losing their uniqueness as airborne, heavy, and striker. As you recall from modularity, all corps were to be essentially cookie cutters, able to take on a joint task force. In 2009, all the TRADOC COEs came online, and our four-star executive council in April 2010 really highlighted that. It's great. These a lot of really excited folks, all the CGs from all the COEs, all the corps, all the ACOMs came on board, and it was you could really see the momentum and almost unstoppable at that point. IMCOM came on board as a fourth Warfighter Forum, and that's where we are today with the entire COP. Next slide, please. Any good process-oriented program, you have to have input and output. If you look at this slide and see the R for Gen cycle representation there on the left, we're looking at the input coming into the Warfighter Forum from the operating force, delivering issues on a continuous basis, best practices, and passing those along to the generating force as an output from the Warfighter Forum. What I'm showing here are essentially the Forces Command efforts with the senior mentor symposiums, gathering a lot of that information, but we're also gathering a lot of that through interviews as well as the umbrella weeks that are held on a regular basis for all BCTs coming back. Next slide, please. The governance I described is depicted here. If you look from the top down at the strategic level, there is an annual four-star Warfighter Forum Executive Council. It's made up of the TRADOC Forces Command AMC commanders, also IMCOM, also AMED, and through that process we're able to get direction and guidance on a regular basis from the four-star activities. Every 6 months, we have virtual executive director steering committee. It's 2-star level, so they're able to vet all those issues that bubble up through a board of directors that meet on a quarterly basis. The board of directors last met before the last EDSC in February of 11. 8 different processes were brought up to go to the 4-star EC. We did not have that 4-star EC because we had a change of command in TRADOC and Forces Command, now BRAC, so we moved things to the right just a bit. So if you're looking at November as an EC, that will move to the right, as certainly will the 2-star executive directors. We're hoping to be able to accomplish our next board of directors in October of this year. What feeds the board of directors? Process action teams, board of directors, when it meets, looks at different issues and different topics that would, again, require the time and energy across ACOMs to be able to come to resolutions. Things like ensuring that the BCT commanders, staff, and their soldiers are not held hostage to lessons learned activities beyond their umbrella week. So that was something that came out of this. We were looking to give more time back to the soldier and accomplish that. Looking at activities such as where we want to steer the program, because we need to have buy-in from that upper level leadership in order to do that. Metrics. You know, what are the metrics that we want to be directing ourselves to? How do we measure our relevance? How do we measure and how do we govern the web pages, the websites that are across the entire spectrum of ACOMs and the Warfighter Forums? So we have the web committee. We have a targeting board that looks at different activities as they pop up on the radar scope regarding things like this, LandWarNet. We can talk Warfighter Forum. Going to the maneuver conference in September, highlighting some of the activities there, trying to ensure and prosecute getting our leadership. For instance, General Rodriguez, even before he takes command at Forces Command, will address the maneuver conference in September at Fort Benning. And hopefully say a few words about the Warfighter Forum too. But again, this is a constant push to be able to maintain that level of momentum with the project champions, CGs. And of course, each one of the ACOMs has their own work group sessions. Forces Command conducts one on a monthly basis with all the corps, wraps up all the RFIs, and reports to the ACOMs what findings are for further collaboration. Next slide. This is an example of the process action team cycle. Essentially, process action teams were put together in July of 2010 as a way to further collaborate. At the top there, you see kind of a stadium view of different teams that will be put together and have been. This is to ensure continuous process improvement and to be able to keep up to date with the latest technology and collaboration techniques as they arise. We draft a Warfighter Forum directive from that. Goes to the Executive Steering Committee as we go around the circle. The Warfighter Forum directives, for instance, the Fragmentary Order 4 to the Warfighter Forum Executive Order, will produce from Forces Command to send that out for staffing soon. Then it goes through the Executive Council for signature, as well as their guidance in regards to how we're steering this particular program. Next slide, please. Relevance is something we're looking at in Warfighter Forum, as in all the lessons learned activities, as well as knowledge management. And the key things we're looking at here are continued command emphasis. Continually get in and brief the CGs on what it is and what we're trying to do, and show relevance in output. Not just talk about Warfighter Forum and brief, but actually show tangible evidence where we are having an effect on saving lives, saving money, and making more efficient use of the time of the individuals who are involved in these processes, and certainly bettering the training and operational forces by going through the generating force and improving the processes. Continuous process improvement is key to both programs. We want to make sure we get continuous constructive feedback. All the conduits are built in that regard. We do send out surveys to the field BCT commanders and KM professionals as well to ensure that we're getting the knowledge to be able to maintain that relevance and continue integration into emerging doctrine. We'd like to show, and we have shown how we have been able to affect doctrinal change within the Army. Next one. This is an example of the power of a senior mentor symposium. This is actually pretty typical of one. Over 100 participants, probably 17 IBCTs, or this is an example of the 18th Airborne Corps, one of their last ones. Briefing from the OEF, BCT commander from the 3101, National Guard briefers from BCT's National Guard, and all the different entities that tap into that for their knowledge. If you get the opportunity, you really should listen to one of these symposiums, because you really don't feel the power of the Warfighter Forum listening to someone like me, who's a facilitator at the ACOM level. You really get the power by listening to a corps commander and mentoring and the activities that go on at these symposiums. Next slide. This is the example of the ACOM level web capability we have. This is a gateway, one of the gateways to the rest. As you can see down the left side, it shows all the FORSCOM and then takes you to each one of the TRADOC websites. So if you're looking for videos of interviews, if you're looking for what is the latest in activities, what's the latest coming out of the executive councils at the 4-star level, what's the latest coming out of the 2-star level, what are the issues, what are the RFIs, how we've dealt with those, and how those have been disseminated, and the disposition of each, that's where you go to find that at 24/7. This is an AKO address, and the reason we do that is we do have some challenges. One of those is that we are talking AC to RC, we are talking CONUS to OCONUS, and this gives us the ACOM level the ability to communicate through all those areas. Now, not all of the websites are AKO derivatives. We do have to use SharePoint, and BCT commanders want to use SharePoint because they can't transfer fight. But until we get the architecture to be able to achieve that, then we're pretty much saddled with SharePoint as well as AKO communications in this regard. Next slide. This is an example of several of the other websites that are out there. The bottom right is the Warfighter Forum that was talked about yesterday. Each one of these is fairly robust and have a lot of individuals involved with each one to be able to make sure that it's relevant, kept up to date, and you'll find that yes, they're not all the same. You'll find that some are they're all unique, but they all have one purpose, and that is to solve those issues and provide information for their particular area of interest, COE or Corps, in regards to taking care of the soldier. Next slide. The way ahead, I said DEF and CEF and FSO. It's amazing how quickly terms change, but what I should say is transition resourcing effort as we go from a demand-based to a supply-based Army. And that means that within FORSCOM, for instance, we recognize that there's going to be some personnel efficiencies that if we don't find them, somebody's going to find them for us. We recognize, for instance, that in many regards, the Infantry Warfighter Forum will have a greater role. In some respects, I hate to say that we would suggest changing manning or moving manning around, but these are things that have to be discussed. Again, a resource-constrained environment, we have to put the best resources where they're absolutely required. Things like, for instance, web portal designers. Each one of the corps would like to have a web portal designer. In our estimation, an efficiency could be that we have one from Forces Command who's able to go to each one of those corps. Those types. Maintain achieving the funding stream through briefing the RBA and the CBA this year. We're able to maintain funding through FY12 OCO. After that, we're still working on that. We are in the, we did achieve ACP 11 inclusion with direction to accomplish Warfighter Forum activities, and we're using that to push ahead with the concept plan to gain Army program of record status and the funding that goes on. Again, a tough one. Codify the Warfighter Forum through any Army training and development activities, champion the Warfighter Forum in the doctrine development continually, and essentially the bottom line there is we're looking for efficiencies with, I'd say potentially competing initiatives, but the reality is and this is really a challenge with Army knowledge management at that level, is achieving efficiencies across the board in regards to lessons learned activities, for instance. Right now we have within FORSCOM the Warfighter Forum. which is an enduring project. We have the call program,